There's a part of yourself you don't show anyone. For me, it was tucked behind routine and normalcy, behind the neatly pressed shirts and predictable mornings. My name is Evan, and on the surface, I'm forgettable. A junior project coordinator in a marketing office, the kind of guy people see, nod to, and immediately forget. Safe. Ordinary. Invisible. But invisibility has a price. I live with Isabella, my girlfriend of 3 years. She's everything I'm not, bold, radiant, magnetic. She moves through the world like it bends for her, touches fabric like it whispers secrets, and laughs in a way that makes everyone notice, including me. She loves curves. She adores them. Dresses that hug the waist, skirts that sway with confidence, shoes that click like statements. And me? I always thought curves were hers. Not mine. Until the night everything changed. She left for a late shift, her heels echoing down the stairwell. The apartment exhaled as she closed the door behind her. Alone, the silence wasn't comforting, it was expectant. Charged. Waiting. I drifted toward the bedroom, not sure why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something else. My eyes landed on the closet. Her side. A riot of color and texture, hanging like an untouchable dream. I should have walked away. I should have respected the boundary. But instead, my gaze fell on a small box perched on the top shelf. Instant curves. It called to me. Not in words, but in that dangerous pull you feel when temptation is disguised as possibility. I didn't think. My hands reached out before my mind could protest. The box was smooth. Heavy. Full of promise. I imagined it on me. Just for a second. A fleeting thought. And in that second, something in me ignited, a mix of fear, desire, and exhilaration I'd never felt before. The reflection in the mirror caught my eye. And for the first time, I didn't see Evan. I saw her. Not Isabella. Not someone else. Her. I laughed quietly, a trembling, nervous sound. The kind of laugh that comes before you step off a cliff and realize you can't turn back. I tried to close the closet door, to erase the thought, but it wouldn't let me. Curiosity had teeth now. And it was biting. That night, I learned something dangerous: the moment you peek behind the door of your hidden self, you never close it the same way again. Rain pattered against the city streets, cold and relentless. Neon signs flickered through the wet glass, painting the pavement in streaks of pink and blue. I stood beneath the awning of a closed boutique, heart hammering like it was trying to escape my chest. The world felt alive and electric, and yet I was completely alone in it. In my backpack was the small box I had found tucked away behind Isabella's fashion supplies. Instant curves, it read. I had no right to it. No right to even think about it. And yet, here I was, gripping it like a lifeline. My fingers traced the edges, feeling the weight of temptation itself. I ducked into a shadowed alley beside the boutique, the neon light dancing across the slick pavement. My pulse raced. Curiosity twisted into something more dangerous, something urgent. The box called to me, and every instinct screamed that crossing this line would change me forever. I unzipped my jacket slowly, my hands trembling. The streets smelled of rain and asphalt, sharp and intoxicating. I drew the shapewear from the box, smooth and impossibly perfect. Running it over my hands, I imagined the curves it would give me: hips, waist, a shape I had only dared fantasize about. I couldn't stop staring at my reflection in the shop window. The rain distorted my face, but I could see it, the beginning of someone else. Someone hidden. Someone I didn't know I wanted to be. I whispered to myself, barely audible over the city hum, just once. Just to see. The shapewear slipped over my legs, pulling me into a new silhouette. My pulse raced, every nerve alive. Each breath felt heavier, sharper, like the city itself was holding me accountable. My hands moved almost instinctively to my waist, feeling the way it narrowed, the way it reshaped me into someone unrecognizable. And then, the thrill hit. I wanted more. From my backpack, I produced Isabella's lipstick, crimson, bold, defiant. I applied it slowly, deliberately, feeling the color transform my expression, my posture, my very identity. With each swipe, I felt a rush of danger and exhilaration. I wasn't just standing in a shadowed alley anymore. I was performing a private rebellion against every rule I had ever followed. The final touch, a wig I had taken on a reckless impulse from Isabella's drawer. Sliding it over my head, brushing it into place, I looked into the reflection of a rain-smeared shop window. My heart stopped. The person staring back at me was not Evan, not fully. She was something more dangerous, seductive, fragile, alive. I took a step forward in the heels I had tucked into my backpack, the click on the wet pavement sounding louder than it should. Every sound, every sensation made me hyper-aware, every shadow seemed suspicious, every distant footstep a potential disaster. And in that moment, I realized, this wasn't just transformation. This was a test. A risk. A thrill that could unravel everything if discovered. And then, just as I was adjusting my stance, a figure passed by at the end of the alley, a stranger? Or maybe, someone I knew. My heart thudded violently. I froze. Every instinct screamed, hide. And in that frozen instant, I understood, the line between curiosity and obsession is thinner than a razor's edge. I ducked into a narrow side street, neon light flickering across wet brick walls, reflecting in puddles like shards of glass. My reflection bounced back at me in every puddle, every windowpane. And with every glance, I barely recognized myself. My waist was smaller. Hips fuller. Shoulders softened. Even the curve of my chest was, new. Alien, but intoxicatingly right. The thrill was like electricity, buzzing through my veins, making my skin tingle. I pressed my hands to my sides, feeling the shapewear tighten, sculpt, and mold. Every movement now carried a weight I'd never felt, delicate, dangerous, and oddly sensual. I glanced down at the heels I had tucked under my jacket. The first step was clumsy. My ankle wobbled. But the second step, the click against the wet pavement, was assertive, confident. I couldn't believe it was me making that sound. Each stride transformed me further, not just in shape, but in presence. I felt, noticed, even alone. I paused in front of a shop window, leaning closer to examine my reflection. I didn't see Evan anymore. I saw someone bold. Fragile. Dangerous. Someone who existed in the border between fear and excitement, between shame and ecstasy. My lips glistened with the red lipstick I'd applied with trembling hands, my wig perfectly in place, hair brushing my shoulders. Every detail whispered, "You're not who you think you are anymore." And yet, fear crept in. Every shadow seemed alive. Every distant footstep echoed like a warning. I could almost hear Isabella's voice, though she was miles away, reminding me that this was a secret that couldn't escape. What if someone saw me? What if she knew? My pulse spiked with the awareness that this transformation was more than skin deep. I couldn't stop. My hands brushed my hips, tracing the shapewear contours. I ran my fingers along the soft line of my chest. Every sensation was amplified, the stretch of fabric, the tight embrace, the smooth silk of the wig against my fingers. I laughed softly to myself, a nervous, breathless sound, caught somewhere between guilt and exhilaration. A sudden noise made me jump, a trash can rattling against the wall. My heart slammed in my chest. My reflection in the puddle wavered like a ghost. I froze, heels clicking softly as I shifted my weight, trying to blend into the darkness. But even in fear, desire burned brighter. I realized something terrifying. I wanted this. I craved it. The danger, the thrill, the way my body felt new, exposed, alive. Every instinct screamed to stop, but every other nerve screamed to continue. I took another step forward, letting the city lights wash over me. Each stride was a small rebellion. Each sway of my hips a declaration. I was no longer just Evan. I was something more. Something that existed only in these moments of secrecy and risk. And then I heard a familiar voice. Evan. My blood ran cold. Heart hammering, I spun, but the street was empty. The voice had been distant, like a phantom carried by the wind. I wasn't sure if it was real or imagined. Every nerve was taut. Every shadow felt alive. I pressed myself against the wall, heels sinking slightly into a puddle, trying to make sense of the storm of adrenaline and fear coursing through me. I knew, in that instant, that this transformation wasn't just physical. It had become psychological, emotional, addictive. And the line between thrill and danger had blurred completely. In that neon-lit alley, soaked in rain and tension, I realized, I could never go back to being just Evan. The shapewear, the lipstick, the wig, they weren't just tools. They were keys. Keys to a part of me I had kept locked away. And now, they were opening doors I wasn't sure I could ever close. The hallway was dim, almost oppressive. Shadows stretched along the walls, cast by the faint yellow glow of flickering bulbs. Each creak from the floorboards resonated like a drum in my chest. My palms were clammy, gripping the edge of the chair I had been using to steady myself. The shapewear clung to my torso, accentuating a silhouette I had only imagined. Every contour felt foreign yet exhilarating. The wig rested lightly on my shoulders, its soft strands brushing against my cheeks. Makeup transformed my features subtly, amplifying expressions I had never dared show. The heels elevated me, both literally and metaphorically, giving my posture a poised confidence. Suddenly, the key turned in the lock. The familiar sound pierced the tense atmosphere, and my heart leapt violently. The door creaked open. Isabella stood in the frame, eyebrows raised, lips slightly parted. Her gaze flicked over me in a fraction of a second, scanning every detail, the contour of my waist, the curve of my hips, the faint gleam of lipstick. Her expression was unreadable, a mix of astonishment and hesitation. I froze, breath caught mid-air. My fingers instinctively grazed the wig, adjusting a stray lock, though it trembled under the pressure. My knees threatened to buckle, yet I forced myself upright, aware of the intensity of her observation. Evan, what is this? She whispered, voice soft yet unwavering. I swallowed, struggling to articulate words. I wanted to know how it feels. Just to understand. Her eyes softened slightly, but a flicker of uncertainty lingered. She stepped closer, hesitant, yet curious. My chest tightened. Every heartbeat was deafening, echoing in the narrow corridor. I felt exposed, vulnerable, yet unshakably alive. A sudden noise startled us, a neighbor opening their door somewhere down the hall. I shifted slightly, and a portion of the wig slipped, brushing my temple. My stomach dropped. The risk of discovery pressed against me, tangible and suffocating. "Are you okay?" she murmured, voice laden with concern and confusion. I nodded, barely, aware that the silence between us carried more weight than any explanation could. My reflection in the hallway mirror revealed someone entirely different. Not the Evan she had known, not the cautious man hiding behind routine. This figure radiated audacity, fragility, and intensity all at once. I dared a step forward. She froze, then softened, yet hesitation remained. Her mind raced behind those wide eyes, weighing judgment against empathy. I realized then how precarious the situation had become. The creak of another door echoed again, closer this time. Instincts screamed, panic, urgency, exposure, but I maintained composure, fingers adjusting the shapewear slightly, aware of the symbolic tension each movement carried. I had crossed a line. Every secret, every suppressed desire, was visible in the curve of my body, the tilt of my shoulders, the stance I had chosen. Isabella inhaled sharply. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, uncertainty and fascination interwoven in her tone. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment, the thrill and terror fused together. This was no longer an experiment. It was a revelation, a confrontation with self and perception, and a risk that had never felt so intoxicating. Every second stretched, every sound amplified, the shifting of my heels on the carpet, the subtle rustle of the wig, the quiet of the narrow corridor. Time slowed, but the tension surged, reaching a point where exposure and acceptance balanced on a knife's edge. And then, a shadow moved at the far end of the hallway. I froze. Isabella's gaze followed, her body tensing slightly. In that instant, I realized how vulnerable this identity had made me, yet how alive it also rendered every nerve, every sense. My transformation had opened doors I could never close, revealing desires I could no longer suppress. The hallway held its breath. So did I. The loft was bathed in muted amber light from a single ceiling lamp, casting long, shifting shadows along the walls. Silence pressed in from every corner, thick and suffocating. Every sound, the faint hum of the heater, the distant murmur of traffic outside, felt amplified, like the world was leaning in to witness what was about to happen. I stood frozen, hips subtly curved, heels poised, wig in place, makeup flawless. Every detail of the transformation had been meticulously executed, yet the tension was unbearable. Across the room, Isabella's eyes tracked me, flicking from my face to my posture, trying to decipher a truth I wasn't sure I could voice. Her lips parted. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, she stepped closer, cautiously, as if approaching a fragile, dangerous animal. Each step made my heart hammer harder. My fingers flexed, unconsciously tracing the seam of the shapewear over my waist. And then it happened, a sudden click from the lock of the front door. Not a soft turn. Not a distant sound. A deliberate click, sharp and threatening. My blood froze. Someone else was coming, someone unexpected, someone who wasn't supposed to witness this. The air thickened. Every instinct screamed, hide, flee, vanish. Isabella's eyes widened, and in that instant, I realized, whatever she was feeling, shock or curiosity, it paled in comparison to the danger looming at the door. My pulse thudded violently, but there was no room for hesitation. The hallway beyond the loft stretched in shadows, the faint outline of a figure forming just beyond the doorway. I couldn't see who it was, but I could feel their presence. The room felt smaller. My elevated heels pressed against the hardwood, squeaking faintly. Every breath I took was louder than normal, betraying my presence. Isabella's hand brushed against mine, tentative, searching. Her touch sent a jolt through me. I wanted to explain, to confess, to justify. But even in that moment, I knew there were no words that could undo this revelation, no explanation that could calm the storm about to break. A shadow moved closer. The edge of the doorway darkened. My stomach twisted. I could feel the shapewear gripping me tighter, the wig brushing against my collarbone, the lipstick already smudging slightly from nervous motion. Every element of my transformation, once thrilling, now terrifying, was exposed in a heartbeat. I took a hesitant step backward. My heels clicked against the floor. Isabella's eyes met mine, silently asking, "What do we do now?" And then the door creaked fully open. A familiar silhouette emerged, frozen in the doorway, eyes locking onto me. The world seemed to tilt. My chest tightened. Everything I had built, the curves, the confidence, the illusion, hung by a thread. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My secret, my desire, my hidden self, was on the verge of being discovered. And just like that, everything stopped. The camera of my life focused on that single, frozen moment. Would I be exposed? Would Isabella understand, or would judgment shatter everything? The answer hung in the air, unspoken, unresolved. And that's where I'll leave it. Time froze for a moment. The figure in the doorway didn't move, didn't speak. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, louder than the soft hum of the heater, louder than the distant city. Sounds outside. Every muscle in my body was rigid, anchored by fear, excitement, and disbelief. Isabella's hand was still lightly on mine, a lifeline in the chaos, but even her touch couldn't calm the storm building inside me. She took a careful step closer, her eyes scanning me again, not with judgment, but with something that felt heavier, something I couldn't define. Curiosity. Confusion. Concern. The figure in the doorway finally shifted. A shadow stretched across the floor, revealing only the barest outline of a person I knew, but couldn't quite place. My throat went dry. My mind raced, torn between explanation, panic, and the almost dizzying thrill of being seen as my transformed self. I could feel the shapewear tightening with each tense heartbeat, the wig brushing softly against my collarbone, the makeup catching the warm light in a way that made me look unreal. I had spent hours crafting this version of myself, and now it was staring back at me from another person's eyes. "Evan," Isabella breathed, her voice trembling slightly, fragile yet steady. "Who is here?" The shadow didn't answer. The air felt charged, electric, like a storm waiting to break. I took a step backward, the heels clicking sharply against the hardwood. Every sound seemed magnified, each second stretching longer than the last. And then, a movement, a subtle, deliberate shift of weight. The figure stepped fully into the light. It wasn't who I expected. It was someone entirely familiar, someone from my past who knew things about me I'd thought were buried forever. My stomach twisted. Panic mixed with exhilaration. Every secret I had carried, the fantasies, the transformations, the hidden desires, was suddenly dangling on the edge of revelation. Isabella stepped forward instinctively, protective but unsure. I could see her trying to read the room, trying to gauge whether this visitor was a threat, or a catalyst for something far bigger than any of us could have anticipated. The visitor spoke, voice calm but with an edge that sent shivers down my spine. "Evan, so this is the real you." My breath caught. Every instinct screamed retreat, but curiosity, my old, dangerous companion, told me to stay. To face it. To see where this confrontation would lead. Isabella's hand tightened on mine. "Evan, talk to me," she urged softly, eyes locked on mine. And in that frozen moment, I realized, my life had changed irreversibly. Every secret, every hidden desire, every forbidden thrill was now on display. There was no turning back, not from this visitor, not from Isabella, not from the person I had finally become. A slow, tense silence followed. Every second stretched into eternity. My mind screamed, my heart raced, and the room seemed smaller, more intense, as if it were holding its breath for the next move. And then, the figure smiled. Not cruelly. Not approvingly. Just a small, knowing smile. "You've been hiding a lot," they said softly. "But now, let's see what happens next." The visitors stepped fully into the room, their presence filling the space with an almost suffocating weight. I could feel the shapewear gripping me tighter, every curve suddenly magnified in my own awareness. The heels pressed sharply against the floor, grounding me in a reality that felt unreal. Isabella moved slightly in front of me, protective but hesitant, her eyes darting between the visitor and me. My heartbeat threatened to burst through my chest, every second stretched by the gravity of the moment. "You've been hiding this side of yourself for a long time," the visitor said, voice calm but layered with an unsettling certainty. "And yet, here you are, fully exposed, in a way even I didn't expect." I swallowed hard, mind racing. Part of me wanted to apologize, to explain, to justify, but another part, a dangerous, thrilling part, wanted to stand tall in this version of myself, to let them see who I truly could be. "Evan, what is going on?" Isabella whispered. Her tone was gentle, but it carried an edge of fear. "I don't understand." I took a slow, deliberate breath, trying to ground myself. I needed to see. To feel, something I've kept hidden. My voice was quieter than I intended, but the tremor betrayed the intensity of my emotions. The visitors stepped closer, circling me slightly, eyes studying every curve, every detail. "It's fascinating," they said, almost casually. You've transformed, completely. But are you brave enough to maintain it when the world is watching? The words hit me like a jolt. Brave enough, or foolish enough? My mind spun with possibilities, the thrill of exposure mingling with pure panic. I could feel the shapewear squeezing me as if it knew my fear, the wig brushing against my neck like a subtle reminder of what I'd risked. Isabella's gaze softened slightly, though her confusion remained. I don't know if I should be upset or impressed, she admitted. Her hand lightly brushed mine, grounding me, and yet it highlighted how exposed I truly was. A sudden noise outside the door, a neighbor returning, perhaps, made me flinch. Every instinct screamed hide, flee, revert, but the visitor's eyes held me in place, as if daring me to confront it. My pulse raced, but a surge of exhilaration coursed through me. I realized then, this was more than a transformation of appearance. It was a revelation of identity, a test of courage, a challenge to embrace a hidden self in front of someone who could change everything. The visitor smiled faintly, almost knowingly. This is only the beginning, they said. The real question is, are you ready for what comes next? I froze, torn between fear and desire, excitement and panic. Isabella's hand squeezed mine gently, and I felt a jolt of connection, comfort in the chaos, a lifeline amid the storm of my own revelation. The room seemed to shrink, the tension thickening into something almost tangible. Every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle movement felt like a countdown. Something was about to happen, and I had no control over it. And in that moment, I understood, nothing would ever be the same again. Not Isabella. Not the visitor. Not me. The future hung in the balance, and the first choice I made next could change everything.